What's going on, people? Welcome to another video in the album series. I wanted to start this video off by talking a little bit about art direction and visual direction, because I think it's very important when you conceptualize an album to also have a visual identity for that album. So, story time. Last year, I released my first album ever called Dusk, and I really wanted to have it have a visual identity of some kind. So what I did was, because I know I'm not the most creative visually and I don't always have a concept myself, I hired a guy and a friend called Mess, and I had him shoot with a VHS, old video recorder with a physical tape inside, have him shoot a little vertical video for each of the songs.
So, came for the W, so I had to manifest them. I don't give a what you say.
Essentially, I wanted to create an artwork from that, which ended up being this one. I was super happy with the visual direction of that. But for this new album, I wanted the sound to be more modern and I wanted the sound to be edgier. So I went with a different direction. What I'm trying to do now is do a more simplified, color-focused theme for the album, because I went through a bunch of old inspiration, like the old Tyler, the Creator albums, the old hip-hop albums. The simplicity and the color popping through, because mostly you see artworks for album as a miniature on streaming services anyway, so artwork is not that important these days when you don't sell physical CDs with the covers. But with that being said, what I'm really focusing on, as you probably know, is video. Therefore, I've hired my friend Rick Clicks to shoot all the videos and basically make them look something like this.
It ain't that easy to say, but I'm anxious of the rain.
Absolutely crazy. More modern touch, more editing, more video effects, in contrast to the very raw feel that we did on the last album. Now, a funny thing about these type of videos is that they cost me quite a lot of money to make, to be completely frank, because I hate when people don't mention amounts. For this album, I'm probably spending between 7,000 and 10,000 euros on video, or dollars, same. So that's quite a big investment, especially when you factor in that the videos that I get the professionals to make do not perform as well as my own videos. It's always the videos where I'm like, hey, I just made this track, what do you guys think? Like raw, recorded. Those are the ones that always perform the best on social media for some reason. But I'm still spending the money on these videos because I think it's really important to have a visual identity and to be that guy that have cool visuals. It brands you as a bigger artist, in my opinion, and I do still think there's value in that in the modern music landscape. And that's why I'm spending all this money on the videos. But for future albums, I might honestly just make more videos myself, because those are the ones that performs the best. But yeah, that's art direction for you guys. Let's move on with this video. What's good, people? It's another day. We're back in the studio, and I've been asking you guys on Instagram what you want to see in this episode, and a lot of you said the rain track and the plucks of the rain track. So let's open it up and let me show you some of that. Okay, so we are in this nightmare of a project that is my single Rain with Downtown Kyoto. If you haven't heard it, it sounds like this.
It ain't that easy to say, but I'm anxious of the rain, 'cause I know this love is blown up water down.
Let me just scroll down the project so you get a feeling of the amount of work that went into this track. Yeah, absolute nightmare of a project. This was actually the project where I found out that my M1 Max MacBook Pro was not gonna cut it for future big projects. This was the original beat. I then sent it to Downtown Kyoto, got his vocals, got them in this project, and then I mixed it in another project. And yeah, I'm gonna show you that afterwards. But the main question that you guys had was the plucks on the drop. I'm just gonna go over that, and I'm gonna go over the drums because you guys often ask me about drums. So let's start with, I actually got the drums right here. Let's just pull that up. Pretty classic Fabian drums, to be honest. It's not really that bouncy because the plucks are what's bouncy. But let me just go over the drums here. We got hats, bounce giver loop that I chopped up. It's from my bounce pack, one of my favorite packs for like bouncy hip hop EDM type of music. Claps and clap layer. On the drum group here, I have mix head with Baines's drum bus preset on and a clipper. And then for the kicks here, we have an oversample kick layered with an oversample kick. Just a high layer from one and then the other one. Then for the drop. Very, very complex choice of sounds, rhythm. Bass is quite simple, actually. Let me just play the bass group. Serum in it, just a sine wave. Like, bro, it's not that deep. It's just a sine wave. Nothing's happening in Serum, no effects. Then I ran that through my typical bass chain. I've shown this 100 times. Black box, SPL iron compression, EQ adding like 10 dBs of mid-range. Then Rift with a parallel setting, deep and dirty preset. EQ P1A adding in the lows, attenuating, and then a Pro Q3 just to control it. Just a sine wave for the tiny bit of compression and saturation. Then what I have here is actually like a real electric bass. And then I automated in some layers like this. This sine bass, exported, run through Rift, and then just low cut. That's it. Just to add some textures to the bass on some of the hits, just to like accent that specific vibe. Because it's the deep. That's it for the bass. Let's go over the plucks. Let me play that with the chords. One of the things I hate the most in this world is sidechain clicks, and I actually hear some sidechain clicks here at the end. I hopefully automated those out in the mixing project, but I hate sidechain clicks when you solo them like this. It's, As you can tell by the naming, I made it in Native Instruments Playbox. Essentially, it's a like multi-instrument, multi-effects plugin with a chord generator where you can do really cool stuff. And what I did in this project is just exported all of them to audio so I could control them. It's just a chord trigger going through like a granular effects, and that's why everything sounds so like choppy and like granular, grainy. So as you hear from these plucks, they're just like, so it switches sound and layers every like 3 steps. So it's da da da, do 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 do. Bunch of different sounds that are close but not identical, giving it like a unique character. And then a bunch of layers. Yeah, super cool. And then individually, they aren't really processed that much. Some of them have like an OTT on or an EQ, reverb, stuff like that. And then the group pitched up because I think Kyoto's vocal tone fit better a semitone up, so I had to like pitch the entire project up. And since these were flex pitched in Logic, it sounded better using a pitch plugin to pitch them up, which I rarely do. And then bit of OTT, EQ, and then M-Blender, sidechaining all the leads to the vocal group. And that is because in the second hook, I had a problem mixing the leads and the vocals because there's a full R&B hook on the second drop or hook.
Ain't that easy to say, but I'm anxious of the rain.
This was so tough to mix. So what I did was, there's a bunch of ways you can go about this. You can use a dynamic EQ, setting multiple bands where the vocals clash with the synth or the synth clash with the vocals. You could use a more, like an easier, more whole approach in a plugin like Track Spacer from Waves Factory, for example. What I did was used M-Blender from Techivation, and I know there's a bunch of different plugins that does this. Essentially, it is spectral sidechaining, meaning that it has a lot more bands than a regular dynamic EQ. M-Blender does it spectrally, where you can see here.
Ain't that easy to say, but I'm anxious of the rain.
The red shows the couple of dBs of gain reduction that I'm getting in rich areas, and you can then set the sensitivity according to how much ducking you want. And really, this is just sidechaining the leads when the vocals clash with the leads only, and doing it spectrally for maximal precision. Love tools like this, and it just makes it sound like 10% better. Let me just play it without the blender on here.
Easy to say, but I'm anxious of the rain, 'cause I know this love is blown up water down. So I'm racing my
This makes the vocals pop a little bit more and makes the leads sit a little bit more in the background without losing their like groove and tone. Because if I use regular sidechain, the leads would just be dampened and just like sit way too much in the background. So this is my solution to that. Let me see if there's more I should show here. These are my vocals.
Would you still make time? Anxious for the rain, yeah, it fills my mind. I can't pretend I'ma need someone who can look past all the other things I've done. I mean, when the storm comes, am I gonna be here by my lonesome?
A lot of you on Instagram also asked me about my vocal chain and my vocal processing. And I feel like we're gonna dive deep on vocals in another video because there is so much to talk about. And this is not really the best example of my vocal processing. Let me just find Kyoto's vocal to see what I did there. Yeah, it's the classic thing of just adding a nectar on the individual strip, just doing compression, EQ, gating, and then a pitch correction that I automated in just to correct some phrases. This could also have been done with like a Melodyne or something, but this is just easier. And then on the vocal group, Opto 3A, essentially like a LA 3A style compressor, just with minimal reduction on peaks, just to get the vocals to slam a little bit more. Then an EQ on the vocals, the Howard Benson multiplier that I automated in. Just in some parts, I want the vocals to be wide, as you see here. I typically automate something like that in. A doubler could also do the same trick. Reverb that I automated, and then I used a limiter here. Yeah, on some of the vocal tracks, there are declicking because I didn't record them myself, and sometimes there will be vocal mouth clicks like on the recording that other artists make, and that's totally fine. You can declick those. But yeah, let's hop in the mixing project of this song so I can show you some tips and tricks. Yeah, so we are in the mix project of Rain. It looks like this, bunch of stems that I exported, and then a bunch of different stems. I ended up doing like a new intro in this project. I ended up doing some extra stuff. And that's usually how it happens. Like I export the stems, and then in the final editing phase of the song, we're like, oh, should we do something different for this part? But yeah, let me just go over what I typically do in a project like this. The bass group just has a ring mod sidechain on. Sometimes I use ring mod for sidechain to the kicks here, just to make sure that it sounds clean and crunchy on those hits. Just edited out some clicks on some of these basses. You can see the fades here. Added a layer here, a tape saturation plugin to the main bass here. Then we have all the leads. I didn't do a lot to those, except I blended it more on the actual hook here with the vocals, the one I was just talking about.
Ain't that easy to say, but I'm anxious of the rain.
So those blend in better. Now then we have the drum group here. Just added some like tiny things, like a little mid-range saturation to the claps. Nothing on everything else except some like manual editing. Typically just editing out clicks or something. Then drum effects and blended that to the vocals as well. That is these. Just making sure the vocals pop through when these are operating. Then just did some choppy things. Vocals, just got an EQ on. Put the new top line suite plugin from UAD on some of the vocals. I really like the analog module here where you can saturate in color. And I really like the dynamics module. I think the compressor in this sounds amazing. Really didn't do a lot. Added more ad-libs here, as you see. Oh, that's actually Kyoto's ad-libs. He sent me like 40 something ad-libs for this track. Dude is an absolute like menace. But they sound like this. Angelic. Loving this plugin for ad-libs and loving this plugin for ad-libs. Infiltrator and the Galaxy Tape Echo. There's like a million versions of the Tape Echo. I know there are free ones too that probably sound as good. Then we have more ad-libs on the break here. What you'll notice with this ad-libs here is they sound kind of like phasey on purpose because I added both a soothe sidechaining to my vocal and an M blender, just to make sure that my rap vocal was in focus here. Then I always limit my vocals quite hard. It's a trick I got from Soki from Banks and Ranks. Banks and Ranks. Then just a bunch of random stuff, man. Breaths that I panned out. Yeah, just more ad-libs. I always tend to record more vocals when I'm in the final project. Really, my mixing projects are typically making sure the audio doesn't click, making sure the dynamics sound right, meaning compression, saturation, all that, making sure that everything slaps. I'm typically saturating some high end on some elements, and then I'm exporting this into like 10-15 stems, sending off to my engineer, and he then does a stem master. The reason why I don't master myself is simply because I've made this track myself. I've probably spent 100 hours with it, and it's nice to have second ears on that. But if you haven't watched my previous video in the album series, I spoke a lot about mastering and why I get my stuff mastered elsewhere and all of that good stuff. But yeah, that's it for Rain.
I got dope in my blood. I've been laying real low in the club, yeah. Run it up. I got the blanco, call him up. Tell him again that I'm coming up. All of the weight on my shoulders, I left it apart.
Yeah, so I'm just sitting here, finishing up the day, doing some emails, doing some planning for what the next single for the album is going to be. I was actually already decided on Work. But then in my ID mix and on my posts on TikTok and Instagram, you guys have been going crazy over the Cash ID. So it might actually be that is going to be the next single. The only issue is just that I haven't finished a master of it. So that might be a little bit of a problem. But yeah, the next episode is, I think, going to be a lot about the performance of the songs and how I'm analyzing that, because my two first singles of the album have been my worst performing songs of all time. They're like the two least streaming singles of all time in my career, which is a big defeat. I also know that music is streaming less nowadays, attention span is less, all that good stuff. But yeah, I'll do a whole episode about that. But just let me know what you want to see in regards to that, in regards to analytics, streaming data, how to interpret stuff, how to actually be clever about teasing out songs before they release to build hype and all that. We'll get to that in the next episode. Let me know what you guys want to see in this series as I continue the album series. Thank you guys so much for watching. Also, go stream the new single, Bounce 03. Peace.